Good evening, everyone. We are continuing with 4 minutes of Mishlei. We're up to Perek Daled, chapter 24. A very well-known pasuk appears in this chapter. Ki sheva yipol tzaddik v'kam. For 7 times the righteous person falls and then gets up. U'rishoyim yikashlu b'ra. But the wicked will stumble and seemingly they will fall down and not rise again in their evil. There's a pretty well-known letter that Rav Yitzchak Hutner wrote. It's included in the Igros Uksavim of the Pachad Yitzchak. It's letter 128, Kuf Chav Ches, where he writes a letter. We don't have the interlocutors of Rav Hutner. It was taken out in one of the articles I wrote in the journal a few years ago. I talked about one particular letter which was there, and I found a little bit about it. But either way, the people who he's writing to, we don't have the letter. But the letter seemingly expressed students' dismay at failing in spiritual pursuits. It's not exactly clear what they were, but was feeling very down about themselves. And Rav Hutner writes a letter which has now become very well known, and it's very powerful. The letter, he quotes from this pasuk in Mishlei. And he writes, and this, by the way, is one of the reasons people say that Rav Hutner was not in favor of writing Gedolim biographies. He doesn't say it, but people say it in his name. It's potentially because of this letter. Although there was a big biography apparently written by him in English by Rabbi David Cohen, but the family apparently wasn't so happy about it. But either way, it's not published. So why did people say he was against Gedolim biographies? Because he writes like in this letter, he says that when we involve ourselves, misaskim anu bitstade hashlema shel gedolenu. When we involve ourselves, we talk about the complete picture of our gedolim, our leaders. He says, "Hinenu mitaplim besikum ha'acharon shema alasum." We only consider their end of their emergence to their state that they are in. Misabrim anu al darki hashlema shalem. We talk about their completion, and their story is basically the end of their story. However, but we skip over, maybe not intentionally, but we omit the inner struggle that they experienced throughout their lives. And he talks about how we know the Chavetz Chaim, he was very careful with Shmiras HaLashon, but he says, we don't know how much of an inner battle he had to wage. The Chavetz Chaim himself had to go through, and the nisyonos that he went through to reach the level of the Chavetz Chaim. And he says that it emerges from all of this is that when a person who's younger goes through certain challenges in their lives, and it's not just younger people, but he's writing to maybe a younger student, but we think that, okay, we fall down, and we're not going to be a tzaddik, we're not going to be even anything close to the Gedolim. But he says the opposite is the case. He says we're more akin to being the Gedolim when we're fighting, we're battling, we're falling down. And he says there's a phrase in English, this is a sefer written in Hebrew, but there's an English phrase he says that we say, Ba'anglit omrim, we lose a battle and win the war. Right? That's the concept that we have to remember, that we're always battling. And he says, this is the pasuk that we have in this Perek. He says, Sheva yipol tzaddik v'kam. V'hatipshim choshvim. He says, foolish people think, ki kavanaso b'derech rubusa, that it's the concept of the pasuk is, even though they fell 7 times, but a righteous person, they get up anyways. He says that's not the true explanation of this pasuk. He says the reason is, the people know, the wise, they know, that because of the tzaddik's ability to get up those 7 times, that was because he fell down and he was able to get back up. And this is something that defines a tzaddik. It's not the person who never falls. That's not a tzaddik. A tzaddik is someone who falls and gets up. That's the process that we go through when we face catastrophe, we face struggle, we face that and we get up. This is a quote from an article Rabbi Jonathan Sachs wrote called Overcoming Setbacks. He says that on his desk he had a quote from Calvin Coolidge, who said as follows: "Nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than the unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent." And this idea of Sheva Yipol Tzaddik V'Kam I think is really clearly, succinctly described here. Defeats, delays, and disappointments hurt. So if there are times when we feel too discouraged and demoralized, it is important to remember that even the greatest people failed. What made them great is that they kept going. The road to success passes through many valleys of failure. There is no other way.